Look, I'm gonna be honest, I was kind of afraid to make this video, but there's a reason I'm making it. One, because I know my beliefs on this will evolve. Secondly, just to have it out there, because people might think it's a bad thing to have these beliefs that I'm about to speak about out there, but I think they're important because most people go through them in silence and they don't really say anything about it. But it is what it is. What I'm about to talk about is religion, okay? And already this is probably going to stir a lot of you up, but that's fine. But there is also something else I wanted to go into, and it's a little bit broader than religion, but I'm going to use religion and education as a way to explain it. And it's something along the lines of understanding what it is that you're believing in, understanding the world around you, okay? When I was a kid, right, my mother and father taught me how to read the Quran. I'd have something called a Maulvi Sahib, which is basically like a teacher for the Quran, right? And I'd read it, pray daily, all the things you could imagine, everything. Same thing with the education system, Went into the education system, I'm brown, you could probably see. So I was pretty good at school, not because I'm brown, of course. I'm just joking around. Come on, guys, don't cancel me. But like you get the point, right? I was pretty smart, but the two things that I realized that I was following religion and the reason I was good at education, right, was because I was quite obedient. Okay, now let me explain what that means completely. Some of you are going to start drawing conclusions from that immediately. Don't start doing that, okay? Listen closely. What this means is I was obedient in a manner that wasn't very curious. I wasn't very curious, you know? What the hell does that mean? It means, look, I just kind of listened and did. I never tried to understand. Okay? Even though I was pretty curious as a kid, I would ask so many questions from my mom that it would drive her nuts, bro. But listen, I never tried to understand what any of it meant. Like, I would read the Quran in Arabic, but I never really understood Arabic. My two languages are English and Urdu, okay? I didn't understand a word, and I would hear a lot of stories which I actually found very, very fascinating about, my religion, which is Islam for like a lot of you that don't know, right? And I would listen to these stories and I'd find them very, very fascinating. But as I grew up, it became harder to believe in, and the reason it did was because I'd hear about people and I'd see people that supposedly were supposed to have more knowledge of the Quran than me and things like that, but they would do sins that would be considered very, very bad within the Quran and things of that nature, and their habits, the way that they talk to people and things like that is just disgusting. Some of those people are some of the very people maybe in my family. People probably don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. Some of the people I've met, some of the friends I've met, and things like that. And it's just like when you see that's who is setting the example. And again, make this clear distinction. I'm not talking about the religion itself. A lot of you are going to get mad because you can't make this distinction. I'm not talking about the religion itself. I'm talking about the people who follow the religion, or so-called they follow the religion. I'm not going to say I'm crazy religious myself. I wouldn't even close to say that. But I think the fact that I've admitted that, right, leads to another point. It's like, look, this level of, I wouldn't call it rebelliousness because I'm not going out of my way to do the opposite of what's told in the Quran. It's more of like a curiosity thing. It's more of like a putting my foot on the ground and saying, but why? Why do I do this? Why do that? Why do this? A lot of these people within the education system, a lot of the people within a lot of your religions, you don't go to those extents. You know why? It's because you fear things. It's because you fear what would happen if you don't. What would happen if you don't follow your religion? Tell me. You know, knowing a lot of your cultures, you'd probably either get beat, you know, probably deserted by your families because you might contemplate other religions, or you might, you know, just be looked down upon by the entire social group that you grew up in and be ostracized, and that doesn't feel good because we're human beings and we're social creatures. So that's one conundrum, if I should say, right? That's one hell of a pickle you're put in. So it's not easy. And then you have the education system, right? The education system, and this isn't really a knock on, I guess, the education system. It's more so like, look, I was the kind of kid that even though I'd get straight A's, people, you might be on the opposite end of this and think, well, I didn't get a straight A's, you know, people look down on me for it and things like that. But if I'm going to be honest, I got straight A's because I just kind of did what I was supposed to. And what does that mean? It's like, that doesn't mean anything good necessarily. I don't mean that, you know, I just did what I was supposed to. It like I was someone who was obedient, but that is the case, I think. I think I was someone who was very obedient to just authority. I would just listen. Not because I was necessarily fearful. I was fearful in religion because I was like, oh, what if I get like hit again by my parents? Or what if I like, you know, what if this happens? What if, you know, I get socially ostracized? How's everybody going to look at me? Things like that. But it's like, half of these people also, you know, preach about the religion to you, but then commit sins that are so heinous that, you know, you can't even really comprehend. So it's like, who are they to say? So I'm just like, screw that. Listen, I always then remember the stories, you know, and I know I keep switching before religion and education, but I'm going to stick to religion for a second. I always remember the stories about the prophet and things like that, and I was like, wait, this man was actually like a legend. He's kind of like Adonis from, you know, Hamza, or he's, in my book, a lot like some of the figures we looked up to as kids, like maybe like any cartoon characters, like or movie characters, like Ben, like I don't know, like Ben 10 for maybe some of you, like Jingo from Blade, or like Blade, or like me, I looked up to Optimus from Transformers, or like Kratos from God of War, or things like that, and I just realized like these are role models, and so I didn't allow myself to look down on the religion just because of the people. I'm just like, how about I try to actually go out of my way to understand this, okay? How about I start reading up on it? How about I read the translations? How about I do my own work and my own research on it so that I can educate people in a manner that isn't preach like, it's more like example. People don't like always listening to people preach because it's like, oh, you know, it sounds good and shit, but how do you put that in action? And you might say, well, Shay, isn't that exactly what you're doing on YouTube? It's like, no, bro, I'm just trying to put my life experiences out there and the lessons I learned. If you choose to implement them, that's you. And if it helps you, wonderful. If it doesn't, then maybe something else will. I'm not trying to be out here like, you know, if you don't do this, this will happen to you. It's like, no, look, how about you go out of your way to actually understand it? Because I'm tired of this, bro. I really am. I'm just like, look, I need to understand this for myself, because if I don't, people will explain it to me in a manner that doesn't understand, that I don't understand. And frankly, same thing will happen to you. Like, for example, that example that I used about like the prophet being, you know, kind of like the things that the people that we looked up to. I'm not making comparisons by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying, look, like, you know, we looked up to like Transformers as kids. Maybe as we like grow up, we're like looking up at the prophet's actions as if they're like, you know, very, very noble, and we like strive to be that. So only someone of our generation could make like a comparison like that, or like a analogy like that could help someone else understand why it is that they should go and understand their religion, right? Because all the elders and things, they look at it from a different perspective. They don't necessarily know how to synthesize all this information and around the world and be like, hey, look, like all these characters that we used to look up to, or like, hey, look, this thing in the modern day is a lot like this thing in our religion, like, like try to make analogies like that to help us understand, or like the stories or things like that. And it's just like, it's kind of frustrating because you don't really follow the religion for the sake of following the religion, because I think that is what's going to give you the intention to follow it like you're actually a believer. You follow it because you fear not necessarily even the God, you fear what's going to happen to you, like in the real world, with your parents, your relationships, your families, or your friends, all these things. So it's like, what even becomes like the point of that, right? I don't know, man. I could be wrong a whole bunch in this video, but I'm just thinking to myself, like that just doesn't make sense to me. But again, that's why I'm making this video, because I'm willing to be wrong about it. That's fine. Now to the education system part. You already know a few bits of it. It's like I was obedient, right? It's because I was obedient to the authority of my teachers. I would just do things because my teacher was like, okay, do them. And then I'd be like, okay, time to play video games, time to play Overwatch for like 4 hours, bro. It's like, I was never, I might have had the talent to be smart like all throughout like high school and a little bit before that. But in college, it's a little bit different. And in college, what I realized was that none of the study habits, none of my talent that I had kind of worked at all. I had to change completely. And when I realized it didn't work and my actions weren't working, I crumbled, bro. I crumbled. My grades were showing. Everything just fell apart. And then I realized, wait, I've been doing good in school not because I was actually good at doing the work. It's because I was just obedient. I never questioned why we were doing it. I never tried to understand. And sometimes, I found that doing some of this work was some of the dumbest shit I think I've ever had to do. Sometimes it was actually useful. But then came along Jordan Peterson, and then he taught me the value of reading, and then he taught me the value of writing and things of that nature, and why you should do it. And I was fascinated at the fact that I was literally never ever told this. I was just told to pick up some dumbass book from some library, read it, write a summary on it, and then nothing even practical, nothing of value. Just write a summary on it, do something with it. It's like, bro, no, that just doesn't work. It just doesn't help. Not at all. So I can't believe that I've spent this long in the education system and I haven't really learned shit. I had to learn it outside on the internet, where some guy that I don't even go to the university of has to tell me all the way from goddamn Canada that why I should read, why I should write. It might seem obvious at first, but like, when you grow up, you're lost, bro. You're just doing it to do it. And I think this is a lesson I had to go through early, and I'm glad that I did, because I feel like as I would grow up, if I didn't try to understand any of these things, like religion or education system or things like that, or like real education. I'm not talking about the education system. I'm talking about learning. I'm talking about real education, like really pursuing something. Then I feel like you'll lose yourself. And you'll hit that point and it'll hit you hard. You'll be like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? Like, what is this? So I'm just trying to warn you, I guess. And maybe there'll be like this inevitable deep struggle that you'll have for a while before you get out of it. But it's like, that's what I went through. I went through a whole transformation, because anytime after that realization that like, wait, why am I doing this? Why am I doing all this? Why am I paying for this many classes? through something like this where I can get online and like all this, like all these thoughts that I was getting about like the education system and learning. I was like, why am I learning this? Why is this? That's when I faced the most resistance in learning, but that's also when I think I understand why it is that I should be learning, and then it gives me more intent in my learning to be like, okay, this is why I understand why now. So there's more drive behind why I should learn, or there's more drive behind trying to understand my religion now. It makes more sense. But if I was kept in the dark about it all the time, if I was just like, oh yeah, do this because, you know, mom and dad told you to, or, you know, God told you to, it's like that does not make any sense to me in my mind, because of the way my mind works. And you might hate me for saying that. You're going to. You might not understand, and that's fine, but that's just the way I operate. I have to understand things and read it for myself. Same thing goes for education. I had to understand why you do, but there was a little bit of resistance. There was a little bit of back and forth. It was like, why? And it kind of caused a bit of, how would I say this? It made my learning very, very difficult. We could just say that. Made it very difficult to start getting lower grades because I was just contemplating like, what the hell am I doing this for? And then I started to learn that, you know, look, and you might not get this lesson immediately, and that's fine, because I had to learn it through my way and the tough way and shit. But like, for me, once I understood things, I had more of a drive to be one more genuine and spiritual human being. Like, I can imagine myself being in the future after I've read the Quran. And secondly, with the education, I can see myself being like almost like Peterson and explaining to people why is it that they should learn. And once they learn to arm themselves with words, and being very, very good at that, as I'm clearly not just yet, but becoming really, really good at that can actually open up so many doors for you and help you provide value in the way in which you want to. And that will help the greater good. That will help the common good, assuming you do it with good intention, you know? And that seems probably very vague to a lot of you, but from my understanding, again, it makes sense. A lot of you won't be hit with that lesson immediately. You might just think, oh, yeah, cool, yeah. Like, what he's talking about makes sense. It might make sense, but you might not be hit with it just yet, because you might also be someone who's a bit more on the obedient side of just, doing the work and then, you know, just doing what it is that you're kind of like told to just do. I'm not saying like, say screw them or screw that and like, you know, curse them out or something. I'm just like, ask why. Ask why. You know, why is it that you're doing this? Why is it that I should be reading this or reading any religious scripture? Why is it that I should or shouldn't? Why is it that I should pursue the kind of education? How is reading this book going to help me? How is taking this course going to help me? Like, you have to contemplate these things, or else you just, I don't want to say have zero motivation, but you don't have any intent to do good with any of that, and you're not showing, and then you have a lack of gratitude to show for it too. It's like, oh, sick, a $2,000 course that not a lot of people can buy, but you have the opportunity to take, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's just like, oh, I'm failing, guys. Wow, look at me drinking my life away. It's like, bro, like, you're getting the opportunity to be educated. You might not like the teacher, you might not like, you know, who you're surrounded by, things of that nature, but it's like you have an opportunity that a lot don't. So like, it kind of takes away from the being able to show gratitude for that thing as well. And I've also realized that a little bit as well. So yeah, again, this was kind of a difficult video to make, because I know like what people will react to this and how people will see this, but you know, it is what it is. Someone's always going to have something to say. So I just thought I'd make this in good faith, and so you know where it is that I stand with all that. And maybe you could talk about it in the comments and let me know where it is you stand with that as well. So yeah, I was just curious about that. So I'll definitely make more videos about like education and religion and things like that, even though I didn't want to and I was too like scared to think about what people were going to say about me and things like that. But it is what it is. Like I know a lot of other people are struggling with this, which is why I made it. So yeah, that's all I got for you. Peace. Take it easy.